Hey guys, it's week 5 of online learning, and it's the last week before we start reviewing for our final for this semester. You guys are doing really awesome. We've talked about atoms and elements, and this week we're going to learn what happens when I take two different kinds of elements and I put them together. So here's our goal for this week. This week we will identify the properties of molecules. We'll identify the properties of molecules. And we have two goals for today. First, you're going to listen to me while I review some vocabulary words and one new one. And then we're going to do some writing on your graphic organizer. The first vocabulary word that we're going to review is the word elements. Elements. Do you remember what elements are? We find them on the periodic table. Remember that elements are special things in the world that are made of the same kind of atoms. They're all made of only one kind of. Our second review word is properties. Properties. Before I tell you, what do properties do? Properties tell us what something is like. One more time. Properties tell us what something is like. And here's our new word for this week. Our new word is molecules. I'm going to spell that molecule. And the word molecule has a silent E at the end. There's our new word, molecule. Practice saying that. Molecule. Molecule. Any idea what the word molecules means? Have you ever heard that before? Molecules are what happens when I take two different kinds of elements and put them together. A molecule is made of more than one element. More than one element put together makes a molecule. All right, so let's review these vocabulary words one more time. We practiced the word elements. We know that elements are all made of the same kind of atoms. They're made of only one kind of atom. We also reviewed the word properties. And what do properties do? They tell us what something is like. Properties tell us what something is like. And our new word for this week is the word molecule. We learned that a molecule is something that's made of more than one element. A molecule is when I take more than one element and I put them together. Awesome. So now you've finished listening to your vocabulary words for this week. And we're going to go on and do some writing on our graphic organizer. This week we have one that looks like this. It's got green bubbles and purple bubbles on it. I'm going to make my own, like I like to do on my own piece of paper, but you can follow along on the computer or print it out if you'd like to do it that way. Alright, so I'm going to start at the top of my graphic organizer with my name, and today's date is May 5th. And now on our graphic organizer this week, we're going to make some math equations. I'm going to start with a bubble and a bubble and I'm going to make a different color bubble on the end. I've got 1, 2, 3 bubbles. And I'm making a math equation with a plus sign and an equal sign. So my paper has a green bubble plus a green bubble equals a purple bubble. And we're doing a math equation because molecules happen when I take two different elements and I put them together and I make something new. So we're going to talk about 3 really common molecules. The first one is the molecule water. When we looked at our periodic table, we noticed that water's not on there. That's because water is made of 2 different elements that are on the periodic table. I'm going to give you the name for water. You've probably heard this before. Water is called H2O. Now, if I look on my periodic table, I can find the element that's named H, or that symbol is H, and the element with the symbol O. Let's go look for those. All right, here's our periodic table. Let's look for H. It's really hard to see the letters, so I'm going to show you H up here. H is hydrogen. That's number 1, and we can find it in the sun. It's a gas, and it's the lightest element in the whole world. That's pretty cool. Now I'm going to look for O. These letters are really small. Here it is right here. O is oxygen. Oxygen is number 8, and we find it in the air that we breathe. It's also a gas, and it's really good for us. We need it to breathe. All right, I found that H is hydrogen. So one of the things that makes up water is hydrogen. And on the periodic table, I saw that hydrogen can be found in the sun. So I'll draw a picture of the sun here. And then the O in water is the element oxygen. And oxygen can be found in the air. So these 2 things are what makes up water. But water is very different. Both of these are made of gas. But is water a gas? No, water is a liquid. So I'm going to draw a picture of what water looks like. I'm going to draw some rain droplets. Our molecule doesn't have to have the same properties as the elements that make it up. Sometimes when they combine, they make something totally different. Now I'm going to make some more bubbles, and we'll talk about the next one. I'm going to start with 1, 2, and 3 bubbles. And then I'm going to make my math equation. Plus equals. So one more time, I've got a green bubble plus a green bubble equals a purple bubble. And the next molecule that we're going to talk about is another one that's everywhere. This is salt. Now, when we looked at our periodic table, we saw a picture of salt. We saw it under sodium. So I'd be really surprised if sodium isn't in salt. But there's something else. So here is the chemical name for salt is NaCl. So let's go look at our periodic table and find Na and Cl. There we go. All right, now I'm looking for Na and Cl. Well, Na, I'm going to start by looking for the salt because I thought I saw salt was in sodium. There we go. Na is sodium. And sodium can be found in salt, but when it's not there, it's also shiny and made of metal. That doesn't sound like salt. The other one I'm looking for is Cl. Looks like that one's on the other side, all the way over here. Cl is chlorine, number 17. And it's a green, poisonous gas. Whoa. It's green and it's a gas. That doesn't sound like salt either. All right, so we found Na is the sodium. And we know that sodium is in salt. But one other thing that we learned about sodium is that it's actually made of metal. It's made of metal and it's really shiny. I'm going to put those things in my bubble. It's metal and it's shiny. We also saw that Cl is for chlorine. Chlorine is a gas and it's green. I'm going to draw a picture of some gas and I'll make it green with my Sharpie. So that's what sodium is a metal and chlorine is a green gas. But what does salt look like? Salt is little tiny white flecks. So just like the water, the salt has really different properties from the two elements that combine to make it. They're very different. Let's do one more set of 3 bubbles. 1, 2, and 3. And one more math equation, because we're going to talk about one more molecule, and that is the molecule carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is another thing that's in the air that you breathe, but instead of breathing it in, it's what you breathe out. I'm going to give you the chemical name for carbon dioxide, and here it is. It is CO2. So when we look at our periodic table, we're going to look for C, and we're going to look for O. All right, last ones I'm looking for are C and O. C is right here. That was an easy one to find. C is carbon. That's number 6. We know that carbon is in anything that's living, but when it's just by itself, it's the color black. Remember, it looks kind of like coal. It's like black rocks. And then the other one we're looking for is O. We found that one right here. O is oxygen, number 8. And we already learned that oxygen is a gas that we need to breathe. All right, so I found C is the element carbon. We've heard a lot about carbon. Carbon is in things that are living, like plants and animals. So I'm going to draw a picture of that bird. Living things. But we also know that what carbon looks like is kind of like coal. It looks like black rocks. So I put in my bubble, I put that carbon is in living things, but it also looks kind of like black and looks like rocks. And then O, look, we found the element O in water. It's oxygen. And we know that oxygen is in the air that we breathe. And we know that oxygen is really good for us. Carbon dioxide is also in the air that we breathe, but it's not good for us. It's good for plants. Plants breathe carbon dioxide. For people, it's actually really bad to breathe it. So you can see the things that we put together to make carbon dioxide is carbon and oxygen. And what we made was something that's good for plants to breathe, but not good for people. We turned the oxygen into something new that's not good for us. So there are our 3 molecules that we learned today. We learned about water, which is made of hydrogen and oxygen. It's made of 2 gases, but it makes a liquid. We learned about salt, which is made of sodium and chlorine. It's made from a shiny metal and a green gas, but what it makes is little bitty white pieces. And then the last one that we learned was carbon dioxide, and it's made of carbon and oxygen. It's made of black rock and an air that's really, really good for us to breathe, but what it makes is something that's really bad for us, but really good for plants. Alright, so there is my graphic organizer for this week. As usual, you can do yours on the computer, or you can print it out and send me a picture. This is, one more time, this is our last week before we start reviewing. So if you feel like you're lost or you want to review some of the stuff that we learned ahead of time, you can go back and watch the other videos from when we started doing remote learning. Next week, we're going to look at our study guide, and then you guys will be ready to take your final.